50% Muslims in our school. That means there's hundreds and hundreds of Muslims. For 9 years, nobody ever prayed. We said they could pray in the yard if they wanted to, but they never did. Then a couple of kids did pray, and then more prayed and more prayed and more, because people are group animals, and that's what happens. Nobody did, so nobody did. Simple. And everyone just copies. That's what happened. It then became the case that it was fascinating. Kids became rude. This was during Ramadan. So there are some Muslims who fast, some Muslims who don't fast. The ones who were fasting and praying would then intimidate the ones who were not fasting and say, no, you have to put that food down. You're not allowed to eat. And it was horrible.
This is difficult as a teacher.
Horrible.
What the hell do you do?
In days, this is what happened. The whole environment changed in a matter of days. And then we started getting calls from people on the outside who could see the children outside praying, saying, why don't they have a prayer room? This is outrageous. This is Islamophobic, etc., etc. Then a petition was started by people on the outside. We got death threats. We got horrible racial abuse. Horrible racial abuse. You can't imagine. Really awful stuff.
Like anti-black.
Yeah, because one of the teachers who was involved in the situation was black, and they just attacked her. It was awful, absolutely awful. Oh. And obviously, the governors and I had to move in such a way to protect the teacher, to protect the children who were being intimidated, to protect the whole school. There was a bomb threat at one point. The police had to come and check the whole school. It was absolutely hideous. And we then banned prayer. And then one of the mums of one of the girls said, right, I'm taking them to court. She was able to access legal aid, and this is for the tune of, we spent about 300,000 in the end. So I imagine they got something similar. They had top lawyers, representing them.
Yeah.
And, so it's a lot of money that you're able to get,
poor
to then take us to court. And you can imagine, right? How destructive that is too. So it was particularly nice yesterday with the England match to be able to restore that community again,
gotcha.
But then over a year this takes to then get to court and so on. And you can imagine the time of mine it took, and governors and so on. In any case, we finally then did win, and the verdict went our way. And that is because the judge understood that our entire ethos would have been undermined by we would have had to have several prayer rooms. We couldn't have just had one. The children, all of our strict ethos would have gone. We have the children walking in silence in the corridors. That would have had to go. Our family lunch, where the children share lunch together, that would have had to go. So it's all very well saying, oh, no, but we want Michaela. We just want Michaela with a prayer room. Well, there's no such thing. You would have had a different school with a prayer room. In fact, you would have had more of a normal school. And in fact, every other school in the district is a normal school and has a prayer room. Or there are 2 Islamic schools that you can also go to. So the judge made the decision quite rightly. Look, there's lots of choice out there. You can go there if you like. But given that not only is it the case that Michaela's ethos is very special, and they've made that clear, before families join, we make it clear there is no prayer room. So you can't sign up and say, we're happy with no prayer room. And then 2.5 years later, your child has been there, been very happy without a prayer room. But then suddenly you say, no, I'm going to take you to court for not having a prayer room, which is precisely what happened. So, yeah, I just think it.
But I was still not confused. I was still very hesitant, because I said, okay, I'm reading this and this all sounds good. And I just experienced this at the church. But Jesus, are you really God? Because if you are, my family's going to disown me. If you are, this is going to cost a lot if you are. And I said, I need you to make it real to me. I need to know that I know that you are God. And let me tell you how twisted the religion of Islam is. The number one sin in their religion is called shirk. Shirk. And that is the number one sin. It's that there's the belief that there's more than one God, which obviously in Christianity, there's only one God. But the way Muslim people look at Christianity is that it's a polytheistic religion, that the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are there's 3 gods. They think it's 3 gods. So I was like, in my mind, I was like, if Jesus, if Jesus is God, I'm committing shirk right now. In Islam, I'm committing the biggest unforgivable sin if I believe that Jesus is God. because that's the belief that now I believe that there's God. Now that I believe there's another God. And so I was like very scared because I was like, well, obviously I didn't really like Islam growing up, but that's all I knew. So I didn't want to I didn't want to have the unforgivable sin on me. But I also knew if Jesus really is, my family would look at me like I had just committed the unforgivable sin and was about to bring shame on my entire family. So the next week I went back to church and I started reading my Bible more and more. And it wasn't like some audible voice, but as I was reading the Bible, I knew. I just knew. I just knew that I knew that I knew that Jesus is God. I can't explain it. Now I can, with all that I know now, right? The theology of it all, and, but at the time, I just knew that I knew that he's not a prophet. Because I was reading about the miracles he was doing. And I was like, I never saw miracles in Islam. I'm reading about the way he heals people. And I'm like, no, this can't just be another prophet. Because even Muhammad wasn't doing what he's doing. So I just knew that I knew he was God.
This woman is on a mission. She's not a Muslim, and her Muslim dress is a disguise. Her mission is for Muslims to know what is in the Quran, because she says if more Muslims knew what was in the Quran, more would leave Islam. Mona Walter came to Sweden from Somalia as a war refugee when she was 19. She says she was excited about joining a modern European nation with equal rights for women. But as a young Muslim woman, that was not the Sweden she encountered. In fact, she says it was in Sweden where she first experienced radical Islam on a daily basis.
I discovered Islam here in Sweden. In Somalia, you're just a Muslim. You're just born into Muslim country without knowing the Quran. But when you come to Sweden, then you go to mosque. And there's a Quran, so you have to cover yourself, you have to be a good Muslim.
Walter says she grew up in Somalia never having read the Quran.
So I didn't understand what I was part of. I didn't know who Muhammad was. I didn't know who Allah was. So when I found out, I was upset. I was sad and I was disappointed.
She says she discovered that Allah is a God who hates, and that Islam is not a religion of peace.
It's about hating and killing those who disagree with Islam. It's about conquering. Muhammad, he was immoral. He was a bloodthirsty man. He was a terrible man. And they can read that in his biography, what he did to Jews, how he raped women, how he killed people. I mean, he killed everyone who didn't agree with him.
Discouraged, she left Islam and became an atheist, until one day a family relative encouraged her to read the Bible. She still remembers the first time she read Matthew chapter 5, verse 44, where Jesus said to love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you.
It was very strange for me, love your enemy, because in Islam you have to kill your enemy. Kill your enemy and kill everyone who refuses Islam. But Jesus Christ, it was all about love and peace and forgiveness and tolerance. And for some reason I needed that.
She went to see Pastor Faoud Rasho.
Didn't feel right not mentioning what happened in Ireland last week here. So first of all, 3 children as well as an adult were brutally attacked in broad daylight in Dublin by a man in his 50s. The man is originally from Algeria. It seems like he's lived here for around 20 years. He's had previous interactions with the guards with stuff regarding knives, but it's not known exactly what seems to have triggered that particular attack. I think we all as a country obviously really want all of those people to make a full physical recovery and also to recover as best they can from the extreme trauma of what they've experienced as well. And things like that really shouldn't happen in Ireland. They don't happen in Ireland. The fact that the man is not from Ireland originally has unearthed a lot of anti-immigrant sentiment, which led to what happened later in the day. My own personal opinion is what matters is to look at every event in that particular man's life that led up to that point and see at what points we could have intervened to do something better from when he entered the country, through the systems that he obviously went through in the country. Could this have been caught? Every element of this man's life is important to look into. I think another thing underpinning all this is we've just had the recent conclusion of the Ashling Murphy trial as well. Ashling Murphy was, if you're not from Ireland, it was one of the most high-profile shock and crimes that's ever taken place here. Young teacher murdered in the middle of the day in broad daylight. And the man who committed that crime also was not originally from Ireland. So there are certain groups of people who are connecting the dots of those two horrific crimes, as well as other incidents, and saying this is what Ireland is becoming now. Things are getting more violent since we've started letting people in. We can't house these people. We're struggling to even house Irish people, and that's basically.
Before she left, she told her mum where she was going, but Kathleen was worried, saying she should jog somewhere else. She hugged her mum and said, Mum, I'm 23 years old. Love you. Turn into the major breakthrough that they so desperately needed. They had been closely watching a man who had walked into a hospital quite a distance from where Ashling was killed just 2 days after that fateful day. The 31-year-old had turned up looking to treat some bad cuts, bruises and scratches to his face. Given how quickly the news of what had happened to Ashling had travelled, the Gardaí were called in by the nurses at the hospital, wondering if there was a link. The man couldn't explain his injuries and was keeping quiet, but he was in quite bad shape. When detectives got there, they too were suspicious and carried out a background check on him. Following this, they went to seize and search 2 cars and search 2 properties as well, one over an hour away in Dublin and one just 8 minutes away from where Ashling had been killed. They interviewed the 31-year-old in hospital. They knew there was more to this story, but left him to stew over what they had said, ready to come back and talk to him later. A short time after, he spoke to the detectives again. He suddenly blurted out, "I did it. I murdered. I am the murderer." He was immediately cautioned and was told he did not need to say anything else, but he couldn't stop talking. He said, "I'm sorry, I see girl I never see before. Knife I use for chain. When she passed, I cut her neck. She panicked. I panicked." He then started crying and asked, "Will I go for 10 years?" He pointed to his stomach, which had 3 puncture wounds likely inflicted by Ashling's keys. He gave a DNA sample and, sure enough, the DNA from under Ashling's fingernails was a match to him. As detectives continued to piece things together, on January the 18th, hundreds of people gathered for Ashling's funeral. The Gardaí received more information about Joseph's actions in the hours before he killed Ashling, and it was truly shocking. Anne-Marie Kelly first saw Joseph on his bike. She had stepped aside to let him past, and he went past really slowly, staring at her in a menacing way, a way that had really unsettled her. Anne-Marie then saw Joseph again at the canal. This time he was walking behind her and pushing his bike. She could feel him staring at her and picked up her pace. Fortunately, she spotted a man in a van pull up and jogged over towards him. Joseph quickly took off. He also followed 3 other women that day, even being caught on camera a few times. After this, he would find Ashling. Authorities believe he was absolutely on a mission to hurt or kill someone. They also described him as a phantom individual, someone that had never been on their radar for any reason until this point. Lining up holding pictures of Ashling as the funeral procession came past. Ryan was beside himself, and he gave a huge speech on behalf of his and Ashling's families. He said, "She is the greatest love of my life. I will cherish the last 5 years we spent together my entire life. I hope that someday, God willing, we can be reunited once more and continue the great plans we have made for each other. Goodbye for now, but not forever, darling, as you will live on in all of our hearts and memories."